Reported earlier, President Jacob Zuma and many prominent South Africans will be travelling to Cuba this week. The country in mourning after the passing of Fidel Castro. His funeral will be held on Sunday. Well, for more on that story now, we cross live to our reporter Bryce-Pease. He's in New York. He's also hoping to travel to Cuba this week, and of course he's been there before. Good evening to you, Sherwin. Just tell us how important this is. Castro, a dividing figure, some say authoritarian. He was passionate about the poor, remembered fondly here in South Africa by many of the liberation heroes. How will this be seen, and what will Zuma's involvement be?
Well, he was certainly a very divided, certainly people thought of him in a very divided way. For example, if you talk about, relations with the United States, if you talk about the expat community in Miami, Cuba, people are celebrating the death of Fidel Castro. But as you mentioned, South Africa and many African countries, the then USSR, now Russia and China, this is a man that is seen differently in different regions of the world. I mean, if you listen to NGOs like Human Rights Watch, they tell you that as much as he did wonders in terms of educating his people and the healthcare system, which is free for everyone, exporting doctors around the world, currently training medical students of South Africa. Cuban engineers are also a favorite around South Africa. But then also on the human rights question, Human Rights Watch very critical about the fact that dissent is not allowed in Cuba. The state controls the media there. All the newspapers are state controlled. And so this is a tale of two cities, a tale of two men, if you will, in terms of how the world views him. The significance of President Zuma going is this is a long-standing and a very deep relationship. South Africa played a very, very important role in the rapprochement that we're seeing from the United States under the Obama administration. South Africa playing a critical role in lobbying the United States government for this era of détente that we're seeing now. Cuba giving South Africa a lot of credit for that. President Zuma on a state visit in 2010 was one of the first heads of state to go to Cuba after Raul Castro, the successor to Fidel Castro, started liberalizing economic policy in that country, inviting South Africa to bring a big government delegation that was again followed up last year by Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa on a trip there in December last year, really to look at what sort of how this relationship can be deepened. But certainly, if you're in Africa or if you're in the United States, there's a different view and a different perspective on the legacy that Fidel Castro represents.
Indeed. Sherwin, who else will be there among world leaders, and how do we expect this week of mourning to play out in Cuba?
Well, certainly a number of public events around Cuba, certainly private events, baseball events, the national sport have been cancelled. Alcohol is not being sold during the 9 days of mourning. The National Revolution Square, where the famous statue of Jose Marti is an iconic symbol in the center of that will be the scene over the next coming days in terms of people being able to pay their respects to the revolutionary leader. We understand, though, that Fidel Castro's remains have already been cremated, so that urn is traveling around different parts of Cuba so as to allow a greater number of Cubans to pay their respects. There's a great deal of debate in the United States about who exactly will represent the United States government. Of course, we are in transition here in the United States from one administration to the next. The President-elect Donald Trump has been very critical of Fidel Castro, and so have a number of Republican senators here. So the word not out yet in terms of who from the United States, but there will certainly be heads of state from across Latin America, from across Africa. I expect someone like Jose dos Santos, president of Angola, to be there. We're unclear if Russia's president will travel there. Apparently he has some commitments that he's bound to in his country, but I imagine that the Chinese premier or the president will be there. There will certainly be a plethora, a broad representation of heads of state from around the world, speaking to how highly he's been regarded in terms of what he accomplished and his defiance in many ways of the United States that was appreciated around the world.
All right, thank you so much, Sherwin Bryce-Pease, reporting from New York, and hopefully we will check in with him periodically and soon in Cuba itself in the run-up to that funeral on Sunday.